Dan McDermott from thechartguys.com is back. Dan, welcome.
Thanks, James. Glad to be back.
You bet. Dan, it's looking awfully quiet out there in the retail sector in cannabis. What's your take?
Definitely, we had a 2-week bounce that was a nice little relief bounce, but as it was playing out, in my videos, I was pointing out, I'm not seeing the bulls proving anything to me. I'm not seeing big bull volume. It just looks like the bears are calling it quits temporarily. So we saw that 2-week bounce and some relief, and then we saw the bears to start this week, both Monday and yesterday, very convincingly coming back out again. They're showing back up and they're closing at the low of the day, which is showing us bear momentum still in control. And this is happening while the S&P 500 is at all-time highs. So people are getting frustrated and they're sick of the downtrend. And it's been a solid 6 months at this point, 5-6 months of pullback. And people are sick of it and their frustrations are showing, whether it's in comments or just in their general viewpoint of investing based on fundamentals. And the thing that I say to them is this isn't your granddaddy's stock market in terms of the bots and the algos and the technicals having way more impact in the short-term action. And in my opinion, as you know, being a technical analyst, I feel that is more important than the fundamentals as far as positioning ourselves and trying to profit playing this game.
Mm-hmm. So as a technical sort of person, do you find that this is a good time to look for the companies that buck the trend when the bears are in control and sort of consider those more closely in terms of where you might get a better experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one way to look at it. There are some names that are standing out as far as their strength is concerned. And just on the USMJ side, for me, that's TRUL. And TRUL isn't one of my favorite companies as far as due diligence for the fundamentals. And, it's pretty situated in Florida. And there was some concerns about maybe the CEO's husband going on trial and all that. But the weekly chart is in an uptrend, and you cannot find that in any other U.S. marijuana stock. So that, to me, puts it at the top of the list for the most bullish name just based on technicals alone. So it's worth, shopping around and having a rough game plan as far as which names you're going to be looking at. But again, this happened in 2017 as well, where we were very patient and Canopy was in a downtrend, a weekly downtrend. And as soon as it changed its weekly trend, that was the go signal. And that was the very clear shift in sentiment. So again, I need weekly trend changes to be a believer in the sector again. A lot of people say that I have a bearish bias now. And absolutely, you're darn right I have a bearish bias. And as long as we're in a downtrend, my bias will be bearish. And when we see a weekly trend change, my bias will be bullish.
So at this point, the monthly, the weekly, the daily are all bearish.
Yeah, I mean, we had a nice bounce. It's a 2-week bounce. We knew we were just looking for weekly lower highs to form on that bounce. What we would have to see to end this year is to hold our recent lows and then see continuation and a solid follow through. And honestly, even that's not going to change the weekly trend at this point. We have to see clear consolidation. I'll point it out in the charts in just a moment what we would need to see, but it's definitely not worth giving up on the sector. I'm certainly not suggesting that. It's just always about patience. And some people have run out of their patience and other people have plenty of patience left. And I think patience is determined by how much cash you still have available to implement in this sector when momentum does shift.
Right. Okay. So then at what point does a technical guy like you, I'm looking at the volumes diminishing continuously as we go through this bear market. At what time does the entire sector become of no interest because the interest is dried up to the upside or the downside?
The moment that happens is when the big volume spike will come. And that's the way it goes. When things get as quiet as possible, and the biggest example is the cryptocurrency space, there's been 2 times now where our chat room has gotten really quiet and I've been the only one posting. And when it gets that quiet, it's like it's the, quiet, almost too quiet kind of scenario, because then the big, Bitcoin ran 40% in one day. 2 days after, the chat room was the most quiet it's been in months. So that's something to look for in terms of a contrarian mindset. But you're absolutely right on the volume. Today, I headed into today saying, all right, we're looking for some hourly oversold bounces. I want to see weakness first thing. I'm going to be looking to make entries. And honestly, the volume just turned me off this morning. I said, I don't really feel like trading in this low volume environment. It's going to be more difficult. We've got the bounces playing out right now, a little 2 to 3% bounce, but I didn't participate because the volume there wasn't enough for me to be interested.
Sure. All right, great. Well, let's take a look at some of those charts and back up what you're saying with some technical analysis, as it were.
So we're going to look at CGC here, and first we'll talk about time frames. So this is the 2-week bounce as seen on the hourly chart. And if you're only looking at the hourly chart, this looks like a great strong uptrend. Bulls are in full control. The sector's back. And it's important to look at the longer term time frames because that is the scaffolding of what the setup is. And if you look at the weekly time frame for CGC, we knew that that entire bounce from the low of 1789 just to be looking for a weekly lower high. Why could we make that assumption? Number one, we're in a downtrend of weekly lower highs and lower lows. And number two, the last time we topped on a weekly bounce was 2889. So we can say that anything under 2889 is a weekly lower high. And we certainly were not expecting to see a 50% plus bounce. So here we are slowing down. Is this weekly bounce over? I won't say it is just yet, but even if the bulls form a daily higher low with where we stand right now, and then shoot right back up and break our top of 2248, that's great. The bounce is still underway, but it's not going to change the fact that we are just looking for a weekly lower high. What I need to see to be a bull in this sector is to top out, setting a weekly lower high, hold our low on a clear period of consolidation, and then see continuation. That is a textbook trend change, which would be a clear sign of a sentiment shift in the sector. Let's look back historically. So CGC 2017, we had a 4-month pullback of over 50%, and that was brutal back in the day. So we ended up pulling back 52%. What signaled the bottom? Well, first we had a bullish reversal candlestick and a bounce. During this bounce, we would just be saying we're only looking for a weekly lower high. The bulls are not proving much yet. We then traded sideways, volume, increasing bull volume and continuation. That would have our attention saying, okay, the bulls are back in the sector. Let's try and get an entry. And it looks like that was the case for a lot of people that entered on this weekly higher low. This is our clear period of consolidation. I do not consider this little sideways move to be a weekly higher low. I consider this a weekly higher low at 664. Increasing bull volume again. As soon as you break 763, that is the clear weekly trend change as far as I'm concerned. And then, of course, from there, it was all bulls on all increasing bull volume. Another thing to look at is on the weekly time frame for CGC, since we have topped out in pretty much all of 2019. Let's see where the bull moves occurred. Every single bull move that we have seen has been on increasing bull volume. So the significant bull moves, 1 week to the next, increasing bull volume here, increasing bull volume here, increasing bull volume here, and what does this 2-week bounce look like? Decreasing volume. So again, we need increasing bull volume to prove to us that number one, bulls are going long, and number two, those bulls going long are convincing shorts to cover their positions. We don't have that at this point, and it's entirely possible we see another leg down. I want the sector to go up. You know, people say I have a bearish bias now. More and more people are saying that. I want the sector to go up. I make a lot more money when the MJ sector is bullish. But I'm going to be very patient until I see the signs telling me it's time to be looking bullish. And right now we just don't have those. If we're comparing this to other names as well, APHA. So we had a setup where APHA was positioned to potentially change its weekly trend, which would have put it as in the forefront as the strongest technical Canadian MJ play if they pulled that off. We had the high of the bounce. We had our higher low established, a base of support. And here, if we had seen continuation, that would have been a very clear weekly trend change and sentiment shift. Instead, bulls couldn't pull it off. We had the high of the bounce, established our base of support, tried continuation, and failed to lower lows. So that kept us from getting too bullish in the sector, and now we have another bounce on APHA and another weekly lower high looking to be set. So will we change this weekly trend back to the bulls at some point? Yes, absolutely. We will reach a point where investors and institutions see value and they will start buying, and then we'll see the bear case start to diminish as far as how much upside how many gains the bears can expect to see after pulling back so many months in a row, and then we'll see a weekly trend change. That could happen within the next 3 months. That might take another 6 months. I have no idea, but until I see that happen, I will keep a bearish bias because that is what the trend is dictating that I should be doing.
All right, Dan, fantastic as usual. Thanks very much. We'll come back to you next week.
See you then, James. Thanks.